Everything about Mr. Josiah Oldcastle was old-fashioned. Even his 1926 vintage car called Gumdrop. Some people said it was positively prehistoric, like a dinosaur. Even his grandson Dan teased him. "Dinosaurs indeed," said Mr. Oldcastle. "It's an Austin Clifton Heavy 12.4, a proper car and the best in the world. But tomorrow we'll go to see a real dinosaur." Next day they drove to the local museum. There, right enough, stood a skeleton of a dinosaur. It was a triceratops. Dan couldn't cope with such a mouthful, so he called it Topsy. He quite liked it. As they left, Mr. Oldcastle had another idea. "You always say I'm old-fashioned, so come next door." It was a computer shop, and they went inside.
"There's nothing old-fashioned about these," said the assistant. "This is the latest computer called the Miracle. Even I don't understand it properly."
Mr. Oldcastle bought it. He'd show them how up-to-date he was. He couldn't wait to try it out. "Let's plug it into Gumdrop's battery," he said. He fixed the wires and they switched on. Nothing happened. Then Horace the dog spread his clumsy paws right across the keyboard. Then something happened. Suddenly, Gumdrop began to shake and bounce, and then went backwards, racing as though in a whirlwind. Mr. Oldcastle held his hat. Then Gumdrop stopped. Mr. Oldcastle peered out. Everything had changed. Behind them stood a prehistoric landscape, and in front, alive and smiling, was Topsy. Mr. Oldcastle stared in amazement. "It's impossible!"
"It's the computer!"
yelled Dan. It had turned Gumdrop into a time machine.
"Come and meet some of the others," said Topsy.
There in front of them were 3 dinosaurs as big as tower blocks, munching away peacefully. They stared at Gumdrop.
"It's all right, it's only a vintage car,"
explained Topsy. One of them picked a flower for Dan. Another strange creature lumbered up. When he saw Gumdrop, the big plates on his back began to rattle. "It's all right, it's a friend," Topsy explained. "He thought Gumdrop was a new kind of theropod." "He's nothing of the kind," snorted Mr. Oldcastle. "Theropods are nasty and dangerous. Anyway, they're all extinct." Mr. Oldcastle started to tell them about old vintage cars. More dinosaurs came, and when he'd finished, they declared Gumdrop an honorary dinosaur. Mr. Oldcastle was very pleased at this, and he invited all the dinosaurs to a race. They agreed, and Topsy shouted, "Go!" Gumdrop shot forward, and all the dinosaurs came thundering after him. It sounded like an earthquake. "Look at me!" shouted Mr. Oldcastle. "I'm the fastest dinosaur of the lot!" But he spoke too soon, for just then the ground gave way, and Gumdrop was deep in a slimy lake. Another dinosaur reached out of the water.
"What kind of fish is this?"
and was just about to take a bite out of Gumdrop when Topsy pulled him out. Just then there was a frightful sound. A huge theropod had appeared in front of them, bellowing furiously. He advanced towards Gumdrop. "Oh, no, you don't!" cried the brave Topsy, and charged at the nasty theropod. Gumdrop leapt forward too, and with lights on and klaxon blasting, it was too much. The theropod turned and ran, but he didn't look where he was going. He tripped over a large boulder, somersaulted into the air, and fell into a deep, deep pit. The earth trembled and shook as it swallowed him up. The other dinosaurs came back when they realized that their greatest enemy was dead. They even danced and sang. Then Topsy prepared a speech, thanking Gumdrop for getting rid of the theropod. Everybody went quiet and listened, even Horace the dog. Unfortunately, the clumsy animal sat plonk on the computer again. Instantly, Gumdrop began to bounce and shake again, and then came the whirlwind. "Hold tight!" yelled Mr. Oldcastle. Then it stopped, and he peered out. There they were, back at the museum once more. Horace must have cancelled out the time machine program. Mr. Oldcastle felt that the miracle computer was too miraculous, and took it back to the shop. He exchanged it for an ordinary one, which he gave to Dan. Then they went back into the museum. There was Topsy, a skeleton once again. But his feet were muddy, and he had a smile on his face this time.